Hi, I'm Christy from Freezer Meals 101 and
I'm Charla, and today we are doing make-ahead side dishes. These are great if you've got something like chicken marinades in your freezer. We've got lots of those kinds of recipes on our channel. These are perfect to have in your freezer to go along with any kind of recipe that needs a side dish.
it's that simple. Let's get started.
This first recipe is our homemade creamed corn. It is so good.
It is so good. It is good enough that we have made this as a side dish for our own Christmas dinner, our own Thanksgiving dinner, because you can just pull it out, thaw it, get it in the oven. It is creamy, it is thick, it is hearty, and it is comfort food. Oh, it is so good.
Something you'd be proud to serve to company. So into a large freezer bag, we're going to put 5 cups of frozen kernel corn. If you didn't have that and wanted to use canned corn, you could use that and just drain it. Then we're going to add some cooked crumbled bacon, because bacon. Now some heavy whipping cream, a little bit of sugar, salt, pepper, and butter. We're gonna mix that all together, squish it in the bag. We're gonna get the extra air out of that bag and seal it, because when you're freezer cooking, air causes your freezer burn. So we're always making sure we get rid of that air. Then in a separate quart-size freezer bag, we're going to measure out a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. We're going to staple those bags together above the seal and freeze this. On the day that we go to cook it, we're just gonna thaw it and then dump the contents into a casserole dish. In a small bowl, you're gonna mix some milk and flour together so that this can help it thicken. You're gonna add that to your casserole dish, bake it at 400 degrees for 25 minutes. You're gonna then top it with that bag of Parmesan cheese and bake it for another 10 minutes. This is so creamy, so delicious. It's really, really a good one. I'm gonna have the link for this recipe in the description below.
This next recipe is a must-have for any big family dinner. It is your garlic mashed potatoes. We are going to start out with cooking our potatoes. You can't freeze raw potatoes, so we always want to cook them first. We have 12 large potatoes that have been peeled and cut. We're going to cook them up and drain them. We are going to then add in some butter, a cup of sour cream, minced garlic, chives or parsley, and some salt and pepper to taste. We're going to mash them together with our potato masher, or some people like to use their KitchenAid to mix it all, and then it's incorporated and it gets really whipped and creamy like that. You can add it to your freezer bag and seal it up and freeze it. You want to wait till it's cooled before you add it to your freezer bag so we don't have that extra moisture in there contributing to your freezer burn. To cook these, you can do them a few different ways. First of all, you want to thaw them. You can put them right into a casserole dish and put them in your oven at 350 and have it till it's just heated through, maybe 20 minutes. These are also nice to do in your slow cooker, maybe a couple of hours on low. You want to stir them occasionally, make sure that they're heating evenly through. And lastly, you can do them on your stovetop. You can put them back in a big pot and let them heat through and give them a good whipping, and they'll be ready to serve as if you had made them fresh that day.
One of the questions that we get sometimes about our mashed potatoes, or just freezing mashed potatoes in general, is what if when you're reheating they're watery or liquidy? And that comes if they're just not quite heated enough. So just keep heating.
Just keep heating and keep stirring to some degree. You can circulate that moisture around and they will cream right up for you and they'll be just great. This next recipe is buffalo ranch broccoli. You're going to start out with your frozen broccoli. Now, I'm going to say you can do it with frozen cauliflower, or you can do it with a mix of broccoli and cauliflower. And today we are just doing it with broccoli. So we start out with our frozen broccoli right in the bag. We're going to add in some Frank's Red Hot, some olive oil, and some dry ranch dressing mix that you can get either in bulk or you can get in the little packets beside the dressings at your grocery store. We're going to mix it all together so that all of your vegetables are evenly coated. We're gonna seal up your bag really, really tight without any air in it and get it in your freezer. On the day of cooking, you want to get your oven up to 425. I like to use parchment paper on my cookie sheet before I put the broccoli on there, and then you can empty your bag out onto the parchment paper in a single layer right from frozen and get it into your oven. You want to bake for 10 minutes, flip the vegetables over and back into the oven for another 20 minutes. They will start to char, get that little colorization on there, and they are a fantastic side dish for any recipe you have.
I think these would work in the air fryer too.
These are fantastic in the air fryer. I have done it. It is easy to really overcook broccoli in the air fryer because those little tips start to get really crumbly to the point of being burnt, not just nicely caramelized.
Okay.
So it can be a little harsh. So if you're doing this in the air fryer, I would keep it, I wouldn't do 400. I would maybe do a little lower, like a 370 or a 380, and maybe for 18 minutes and see how it goes, because it is pretty easy to crisp up your broccoli
Overcook.
in your air fryer. Yeah.
This next one is super simple. We're just gonna do some cubed butternut squash. So you're gonna take your butternut squash and peel it, cube it, put it into a freezer bag. This time I was only using half of a butternut squash. I had used the other half in a recipe. So I'm just doing this in a quart size bag. This is a real side. Then we're going to add a splash of olive oil, some salt, pepper, and rosemary. You can use dried rosemary or you can cut up some fresh rosemary. You're just gonna give that a shake, take out the excess air, seal it and freeze it. On the day that you go to cook this, you can either roast it in your oven or you could also cook this in the air fryer.
You totally can. This last recipe is another air fryer recipe that can also be cooked in the oven. I think it started out as a sheet pan recipe for us, but I really like it in the air fryer, and I did it recently and it is so good. It's Brussels sprouts. We start out with a pound of frozen Brussels sprouts. We give it a splash of oil. We are going to add in minced garlic, salt and pepper, and in a separate bag, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. We're going to remove the air from the bags and staple them together. On the day of cooking, you want to allow them to thaw, or mostly thawed. And if you're going to do it in the air fryer, you want to preheat for 5 minutes or so at 380. You want to cook these for about 18 minutes, turning once, and then a few minutes before it's done, then you sprinkle the Parmesan cheese on top of your Brussels sprouts. In my experience, if you put the cheese on too soon, it all just drips off and ends up in the bottom of your air fryer and none of it stays on the Brussels sprouts. So that is a really good way to do it. It does have the right amount of caramelization on your Brussels sprouts. It is really delicious. If you wanted to do this in your oven, put it on your cookie sheet, cook it at 400 for 20 to 25 minutes, and again, sprinkle that Parmesan cheese on at the end and serve it.
So these recipes are perfect to have. When we first started doing freezer cooking, we didn't do side dishes. We just had our casseroles, our full meals, our sheet pans, all of that. Or we had our
chicken with a marinade,
salmon with a marinade.
Where we were gonna make our own side dishes at home at the time. And lots of times we do, but kind of lots of times we didn't.
Yeah, because I would find that when we would get towards the end of our freezer meals, what I would have left is those meat-only meals, because I was avoiding making them because I didn't want to have to plan out my side dishes, go to the store, get the ingredients, and cook those along with the part that's already done, which is our meat. So I was avoiding those, and at the end, that's what I was left with. So now that I'm starting to do more and more side dishes in the freezer, because we also will do like garlic bread in the freezer, and yeah, we've got a few different carrot recipes we do in the freezer. So now that I'm starting to have more side dishes, I find that I'm avoiding those meat recipes a lot less.
And that's funny. I always use those first because they are our favorite at our house.
Right.
And sometimes a side dish at our house is microwaved frozen peas. It really doesn't have to be elaborate, but again, they're still frozen and they're convenient.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm making a stir fry every time. So
we're gonna put a video right there to some salmon marinades. Because that way you can have the salmon to go with your side dishes.
great idea.
Thanks for joining us today.
Bye.
Happy cooking.